Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this video, we're going to look at the new DLC called the Mountain Royals. This is set to release on October 31st and features 2 new civilizations along with a major rework of the Persians. Now, some of this info was leaked ahead of time, but that was mostly just the general descriptions, and here we're going to dig into the details as I have some early access. The 2 new civilizations are the Georgians as a defensive and cavalry civ, and the Armenians as an infantry and naval civ officially, but also kind of an archer civ with a caped archer unique unit. The DLC features new mechanics with drop-off camps for both of those civs, as well as a regional change to the monastery for both. So there's a lot more going on here than just tweaking a few numbers. We'll start things off with the long fan-requested Georgians. Personally, I find the idea of a cavalry and defensive mix pretty interesting, as usually cavalry is associated with aggression and mobility, which is the opposite of defensiveness. But in this case, they really did manage to emphasize both. Their first bonus is they start with a mule cart, but have minus 50 food. Of course, this raises the question of what exactly is a mule cart? Well, this is technically a building that costs 20 food and 100 wood, and functions as their version of a drop-off camp for wood, gold, and stone, or for hunters specifically, for example, if you're milling deer. You still need the traditional mill for berries, farming, shepherds, and fishermen, which is admittedly slightly confusing and reminiscent of AoE1's storage pit and granary distinction. You may also recognize this as the ox cart for the Norse in Age of Mythology, and is also where you get your camp upgrades as well. The obvious advantage is you can move it with your wood line, or around the map as you use up gold mines, but it does have an initial 20 food cost added onto it. Georgians start with one though, and will probably have among the most unique starts in the game, putting maybe even the first 8, 10, or possibly 12 villagers on food and luring an early boar, since you get your first camp for free and don't need to prioritize wood as early. At the same time, you're probably going to be tight on food from starting with 50 less and having no immediate need for the cart. The cart does give the advantage though of a slower second scout, and while it's relatively low in HP, it can be garrisoned in the town center during a raid. Very creative ideas will certainly come from this, and the long-term advantage of never having to refresh wood lines at a certain point seems worth a bit more finicky start in a lot of closed maps especially. Their second bonus is Fortified Churches give villagers in a 10-tile radius a 10% extra work rate, shown with the outer square outline. Again, what is a Fortified Church? Well, this is a unique monastery replacement for the 2 new civs that can garrison up to 10 units for safety, and if those are villagers, it can also fire arrows within the inner circles shown here. When fully upgraded, it has 11 attack and 3000 HP, which is pretty tanky and very comparable to a town center. They're really pushing the monastery here as an economic and defensive building, which is pretty unorthodox for a technically orthodox church. Even just the plus 10% collection rate in range is a pretty massive late game bonus if you spam these everywhere around your base. I should note they cost slightly more at 200 wood instead of the 175 for the regular monastery, but personally I was expecting it to cost a little stone, given how much better it is than a basic monastery. Next up, Georgians take 15% less damage when they have a hill advantage, and this is on top of already taking 25% less bonus damage from hills usually, and it turns out they just take exactly 40% less damage than they do on flat ground, both for buildings and for units. I see this as a natural complement to the Tatar hill bonus, which enhances their attack, and this is just the defensively oriented counterpart. Their team bonus is also that repairing takes half the usual resources, so you can imagine how easy it is to repair a castle up on a hill when you're taking less damage and your stone goes a lot farther. Their final civ bonus is Georgian cavalry regenerates 5 HP per minute in feudal, scaling up with each age. This is a solid bonus for early scouts, knights, or cavalier, and Georgians actually have decent cavalry, though they're missing paladin. This also applies to their cavalry unique unit, called the Manaspa, which is actually quite cheap at 60 food and 45 gold, though its stats aren't amazing at first glance. It has 25 less HP than a knight, but 2 more attack in Castle Age, making it more of a glass cannon type. That's even more true when you consider its unique ability, which is to be powered up in the presence of other cavalry. The way this seems to work is they get +1 attack for every 5 knights or other Manaspas nearby, meaning a group of 6 all give each other +1 attack, a group of 11 give each other +2, and this goes up to a maximum of +4 if you have 21 or more units relatively close together. So you have a somewhat fragile but hard-hitting army that needs to keep its numbers up to be fully effective. The unique techs first give defensive buildings more attack, and towers fire arrows that pierce multiple units, which ends up looking like a full damage area attack. The other unique tech lets cavalry take up 15% less population space, so clearly they're doubling down on both the defensive and the overwhelming cavalry army motifs. So that's the Georgians, who are very interesting on paper. My impression is they have a tough start, with the Mule Cart being almost as much of a hindrance as a help in the first 3 or 4 minutes. And even in early feudal age, the only real advantage here is self-healing scouts. At the same time, they seem very strong in late Castle Age or Imperial if left alone, with up to 10% collection rate for most of their economy, not having to rebuild camps, and are quite possibly the best defensive civ in the game, with a great cavalry snowball. Having extra efficient farmers and over 15% more hussars for the same population space is going to be tough to deal with, and their infantry and siege are also pretty solid, though their archers are a bit weaker, missing Arbalester and the final armor upgrade. Now let's talk about the other new civ, the Armenians. The identity of this one is a little trickier to wrap my head around. Officially, they're infantry and naval, though they have an archer and monastery unique unit, along with nearly fully upgraded Arbalesters and fully upgraded Castle Age knights. So at first glance, they seem a lot more diversified than I'd say Georgians are. Their first bonus is Mule Carts cost 25% less, and their techs are 25% more effective. That means the wood, gold, and stone upgrades give extra benefit, which I see mostly as a powerful wood bonus, as instead of double bit axe making lumberjacks work 20% faster, for example, they'll be 25% faster. By the late game, that's a lot of stacking, and the mobile mule carts also keep the lumberjacks at nearly perfect efficiency. Their next bonus is the first fortified church you build gives you a free relic garrisoned inside. Armenian fortified churches don't have the economic aura effect of Georgians, so this is basically like a permanent villager on gold starting whenever you build this. It's a creative and solid eco bonus, but doesn't seem overpowered, and of course your opponent can steal it from you if you don't protect it. The next bonus is their big infantry one, which is that their barracks units can be researched 1 age earlier, with the exception of no men-at-arms in Dark Age. Instead, we're talking about long swords in late feudal and halberdiers and champions in Castle Age. You won't have the next age's blacksmith techs yet, so they aren't fully an age ahead, and they're also quite expensive upgrades for your economy at that point. But you can immediately see why they point to infantry as the Armenians' identity. I have a feeling something about this is going to be broken and get patched, but I don't know if I'm more afraid of feudal or Castle Age at this point. What's more is in Imperial, they have a unique tech, giving infantry except the spear line plus 30 HP. So your champions get up to 100, and their team bonus is also that infantry have plus 2 line of sight. If all this doesn't make their militia line incredibly scary in the mid to late game, I think that says a lot about how underpowered the swordsman line is by default at the moment. And finally, their last bonus is that the galley line fires 2 projectiles. I almost lost my mind when seeing this, thinking there's no way they do double damage, but it turns out the second projectile just has 1 attack, so it's really not all that impressive and not as scary as it looks. As for their unique units, the first at the castle is the composite bowman. They have just 4 attack in both non-elite and the elite version, but ignore enemy pierce armor, meaning it's up to 8 guaranteed damage regardless of the enemy unit's armor or upgrades. Keep in mind it doesn't work against siege or buildings, and have less range than an Arbalester when fully upgraded, but will really flip the script on some units whose pierce armor is supposed to make them anti-archer. The other unique unit is the warrior priest at the Fortified Church. As you might expect, this is a mix of a monk and a swordsman, who can fight as an infantry or have the ability to slowly heal nearby units when out of combat, while also being able to collect relics for you. You still have the option of the monk for conversions, and this is simply an extra infantry unit at the Fortified Church with some slow healing ability on friendly units. Looking at their unique techs, the first gives demo ships a larger blast radius, and the galley line and drillman +1 range, and they have bracer on top of this, giving them the longest range galleons in the game. The other unique tech we've seen, which is that infantry accept spears, but including warrior priests get plus 30 HP, which also doubles their healing rate to what looks to me about almost the rate of a monk. So that's the Armenians, and my impression is while they're infantry and naval officially, again the archer unique unit that specializes in high pierce armor targets, Arbalesters only missing Thumbring, plus the warrior monk make them feel like quite a bit more than that. The composite bowman seems situationally very good depending on the matchup, and even their cavalry and siege aren't that bad, with fully upgraded knights in the mid-game just lacking the final cavalry armor upgrade, making their late game a bit weaker. Their only real early game bonus is 25% cheaper mule carts or camps though. Like Georgians, it's not really the early game they're set up for, but can probably start to take off when their infantry, free relic, and when the more effective eco-techs start to kick in. Georgians seem a little easier to put a label on, and Armenians I would say have more depth to explore and seem more unpredictable. Now that's the 2 new civs, but there's kind of a third in that Persians had an extensive rework, though probably not quite enough to consider them a new civilization. It's more they have a slightly different emphasis, buffing 2 units that previously didn't see all that much play. First of all, they're keeping the same start and town center and dock bonus, so Dark Age town center drops are staying in the game. On top of those existing bonuses though, they're getting 3 additional ones. The first of these is Parthian Tactics is available in Castle Age. Persians are of course lacking Bracer, so the Cavalry Archer isn't ideal in the late game, and Cavalry Archers are also difficult and expensive to tech into, so it's hard to say what effect this would have in practice. They're also getting a new bonus that Cavalry generate 5 gold when killing enemy military units, and Cavalry Archers do count as cavalry for this. Note this doesn't impact raiding villagers, as they have to be military units, but in a big 40 versus 40 battle, that's 200 free gold right there, and can probably add up to 1,000 or more in many games. Combined with a goldless archer line, that's a couple of theoretically pretty good trash war benefits adding up, and basically for every 27 enemies you kill, in the late game you get 1 free onager. It's not broken in my mind, but you have to be careful about feeding Persians weak units throughout the game, and I could even see in some cases a trapped army just being deleted so that you don't feed the Persians more gold. Likewise, for Persians, this creates an interesting dilemma of do you want non-cavalry units to compete for kills with your cavalry, as crossbows or onagers getting those kills doesn't generate gold. Their third new bonus is they can now build the caravanserai, which increases trade cart speed around it and bumps up trade for your whole team. The 3 new bonuses are not the full extent of their changes though, as they also have a unique unit replacing the paladin. It has 15 less HP, but has +1/+1 armor, making it functionally quite similar, and almost a reskin at first glance. An important consideration though is they're just 1,000 food and 600 gold to upgrade from Cavalier, versus 1,300 food and 750 gold for the Paladin. So if anything, they seem easier to tech into, while giving you something of comparable value. Also notable is Persians are getting a new Imperial Age unique tech. Previously, you had Mahouts giving war elephants plus 30% speed, and now they're just getting plus 33% speed for free, giving you speedy war elephants right out of the gate. The new unique tech to replace it is basically boiling oil back with a vengeance, which lets castles fire bullets, giving them +4 attack, +3 against rams, and +3 against infantry, while also taking 25% less bonus damage in return. Think damage from rams or trebuchets. Everyone will get this Persian overhaul, even if you don't buy the DLC. This is essentially a series of strict upgrades for them, making cavalry archers in Castle Age better, giving you a trickle of gold throughout the game, better trade routes for your team, a cheaper upgrade for a paladin equivalent, faster war elephants, and better castles. Altogether, it keeps the cavalry focus, but gives the cavalry archer a new lease on life, and might make the war elephant more common to see. So overall, I'd say it's a pretty creative DLC. Regardless of what type of unit or strategy you like, there's probably something here to play with. And there's also 3 new campaigns, with 1 for each of the new civilizations, and also 1 for Persians. Rest assured, even campaign-only players here will get some new content. There's also a big patch coming on October 31st in addition to the DLC release, though that's a whole deep dive in itself, and I'll hopefully get to that video soon. Personally, I'm excited for all the new mechanics they're adding, and it seems like they're taking a particularly creative approach to the new civs this time around. The price of the DLC is $15, which is a little more than their DLCs are usually, and that could be a consideration if you're on the fence or haven't picked up all the previous DLCs. That'll do it for this one though. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.